The Doobie Brothers on Whipps Cross and China Grove, just coming up to 13 minutes past 8 on a Wednesday evening. NHS care is usually very good and most people don't have problems, but occasionally things can go wrong and you might want to complain. But who do you complain to and how do you go about it? Well, nowadays every England area has an independent NHS complaints advocacy service and it's funded by the local authority. It's free for everyone and depending on where you are, different people provide the services. One of the organisers that does that is called POhWER, POhWER. And with me this evening from POhWER are Stephanie Linden and Joseph Opara. Stephanie, good evening.
Good evening.
Did I get that about right?
That's absolutely right, John. Well done. Thank you.
What sort of areas does POhWER cover and who is POhWER?
So POhWER is a charity. It's an independent charity, and as you mentioned, it's funded by local authorities nationally up and down the country. And POhWER actually stands for People of Hertfordshire Want Equal Rights. And the reason why it's called that is because it was set up by a handful of people with learning disabilities 25 years ago now, who wanted to get their voice heard and understand their rights. And since then, it's grown. The charity's grown exponentially and holds contracts for advocacy services up and down the country. A main contract that it provides in a number of areas across 22 London boroughs is the Independent Health Complaints Advocacy Service. POhWER also provides advocacy for the mental capacity advocates, so anybody deemed not to have capacity to make a major decision in their life has a legal right to an IMCA, an independent mental capacity advocate. And we also provide the independent mental health advocates for anybody detained under the Mental Health Act or in a mental health hospital that needs to understand what their rights are whilst in hospital.
Is it aimed at any particular group of people or is it just anybody at all that can use the service?
Yeah, so for the NHS complaints advocacy, everybody can use the service. That includes all ages, children, up to older people. And but a lot of the people that we support are vulnerable or in a difficult place in their life. So they may have gone through a recent bereavement or not be very well or have gone through some major treatment recently. We also help people that have got mental health issues or with learning disabilities, people whose English isn't the first language, who find it difficult to understand what can be actually quite a complex process to navigate through NHS services and also through the complaints process. So we help people to break down the process. So we help people we listen to people's issues, listen to their stories and find out what it is that's happened to them that they're not happy with. And then we explain to them what their options are in terms of making the complaint, whether they want to write a letter to whichever the NHS provider is, or whether they want to voice their complaint over the phone. And then we can help people to write letters and we can help people to go to meetings. So when they receive the response from the hospital or from any NHS services to their complaint, if they're still not happy or have outstanding concerns, they may then want to ask to go to a meeting to meet either one of the directors of the hospitals or the doctors or the nurses or even the chief executive to talk about what their outstanding concerns are. We hope at that point to get a resolution, but there is a final stage if people are still not happy, and we will help people to put together an application to the Parliamentary and Health Service Ombudsman for an independent investigation, and they will look into the situation to find out whether the hospital or NHS provider has done as much as they can to address the concern. And
it is all free and it's funded by the local authority, presumably that's the local borough, is it in this case, Waltham Forest or Redbridge, whoever?
That's right. So whoever the local council is, Tower Hamlets, Waltham Forest, Hackney, they fund the service. It's a statutory service, so it has to be funded. And it's free to patients or service users, and it's completely confidential. and we're independent from the NHS. And that is essential because people sometimes want to know that whoever is advocating for them is on their side.
How does it differ from the PALS service, which we know about within the hospital? That's the same sort of thing.
Yeah, so we work quite closely with PALS departments. The PALS departments are in hospitals, so there isn't a PALS function within primary care, so GPs, opticians, pharmacists. Right. But within hospitals we work quite closely with PALS. PALS are there to be able to sort things out there and then whilst people are in hospital, and are really effective at doing that. But sometimes people have already left hospital, and it's only when they've left hospital that they've decided they want to raise the issue, or it's a longer it's an issue that needs a longer fix, requires a formal complaint. So the main difference is PALS will deal with things that go wrong informally, and then when people need to escalate that to a formal complaint, that's when it's useful to have an independent advocate to help them through the process.
OK, but we're not talking about people suing the NHS for millions of pounds here. We're talking about smaller cases, not financial.
That's right. Most people that we talk to people about what outcomes they want as a result of making their complaint, and usually people want an investigation as to what's happened, an explanation, an apology if that's due, and reassurance that the same thing won't happen to them or somebody else. So there's been some learning or improvement made. That's sometimes around a change of policy or procedure, or some training that may happen as a result of somebody making a complaint. So those are the sort of realistic outcomes that people are usually looking for. If people feel that there's been a medical accident and they may be looking for compensation, then we make it quite clear that we're not operating as lawyers, and so we would signpost to legal services for that, because realistically people can't achieve compensation as a result of the NHS complaints process. Having said that, there are sometimes if you get goodwill amounts paid for smaller issues, if the hospital feels that that will be able to reach a quicker resolution.
And POhWER has been going for quite a long time, and the Advocacy Services has been for a long time, but a lot of people haven't heard of it, have they? Why is that?
That's right. It's a huge challenge for us to be able to make sure the service is visible and accessible. And one of the reasons for that is because at the end of the day, we are only 14 of us on the team, and we're covering pretty much the whole of London. And the NHS is a hugely complex organisation with lots of different providers involved: hospitals, community trusts, mental health trusts, GPs. So for us to get visibility in all those places, it's quite a challenge. So this is a fantastic opportunity, and thank you, Whips Cross Radio, that we can get that message out to quite effectively and quickly to a lot of people.
OK, that's who POhWER is. That's what the service is. We'll take a break with a little bit of music, and then I'm going to talk to Joseph about some examples of the sort of things that you've done in the past and what you can do for people in the future.